Sheepskin coats. Now we've all seen Del Boy and everything else. He wears one. There's a problem with them. If you had an MGA or an XK150 or something like that, I actually had a TR3. You just had to have one of these. There's nothing warmer than a sheepskin coat, and they're pretty stylish. Everybody that had an open-top sports car had a flat cap and a sheepskin coat. The problem was they got quite popular, and a lot of people started making them quite cheaply, and it was as though everybody made the wrong pattern, and maybe somebody started making them and everybody copied their pattern, not knowing it's the wrong pattern. A lot of sheepskin coats that I come across, try them on, you think, wow, this is quite nice fit, it's super warm, it's nothing, and it's natural. And then you put your hands in your pockets and you find the pockets, it's not too bad on this one, the pockets are sort of down here, particularly the ones that have got a break just here. And so if you put your hands in your pockets to keep warm, you find yourself sort of doing this and sort of slouching. That is the problem with most of the sheepskin jackets that I come across on the second-hand market. This one's quite nice, it's not too bad, it's got a button missing, I'm going to replace that. But I've got two which are mine for keeps. One which is absolutely super warm, and now I had two fantastic full-length sheepskin coats which I lent to a well-known Italian fashion company for a photo shoot, who will be nameless, duffel, and I never got them back. A little bit annoyed about that because I never had a full-length one again since. So now my favourite one is an unusual one. When I buy sheepskin coats, I normally want the ones that are branded Moorland. They were the best, and this one is an unusual pattern. It's got 4 pockets, and I've only ever seen one like this. It's not a very heavyweight one. Buttons up quite nicely, and yeah, this is really pretty smart. Love this one. Might have preferred a slant pocket, but this is absolutely super. They were normally made a little bit long and you turn the cuffs back, but this one is about the right size for me. It's an absolutely super one. It's probably 50 years old. This would have been made maybe late 60s, something like that. Now, the company, Moorland, they were the market leaders. They're down in near Glastonbury somewhere. Now, the son of the family obviously was working in the business, and he'd go to Peru and Paraguay and places, chasing down sort of pelts of things like llamas and alpacas and what have you, and importing sheep skins from those countries. And quite quickly he decided that he didn't want to be a sheepskin coat executive. He wanted to be a drug dealer. But he was a useless drug dealer. He kept getting caught. And so instead of having this really lovely company, Moorland, and being a famous sheepskin coat maker with your name on everybody's coat, he did, I think, altogether about 12 years in prison for his useless drug dealing. He did prison in just about every country there is, and there's a book that you can buy that tells the whole story. That sadly he finished up. Obviously his marriage and everything dissolved, got away, and finished up in some council flat in Chiswick or somewhere. But yeah, a little bit sad really, because I'd like to see the brand still alive now. Instead, everybody's just buying puffer jackets made out of plastic, when these things, there's absolutely nothing more warm, comfortable and stylish. Yeah, I've got about 3 of them, but this one I'll never be parted from. Love this one. Yeah. Now, this is the British warm overcoat. So called because it's British and it's warm. Obviously it's modelled slightly on an officer's greatcoat, and it's very favoured by cavalry officers and guards officers, but it isn't a military coat. It's a civilian version of that, and they're absolutely super. There's one little problem with them. They're beige, and that's the favourite colour of moths. You see, if you have a wardrobe, you can have half a dozen beautiful cashmere navy blue overcoats, and one beige one. The beige one will get eaten to pieces because moths like things that they're camouflaged against. So you've got to keep an eye on your beige stuff. Now, these are absolutely fabulous. It's such a classic English thing. And the best ones, I've got several examples just here. The best ones, I feel, the best ones I've seen were made by Moss Bros and Hawks & Co. before they were Geeves and Hawks. Then you had super qualities, probably a Crombie cloth. You had beautiful leather buttons, which were leather buttons, not plastic buttons made to look like leather buttons. And yeah, the other ones were pretty heavy, and not frighteningly heavy, but they were warm. They did the job. It was the British warm. I'll just show another couple. Now this one is made by, I think, Austin Reed. Yeah, this is made in the 1950s by Austin Reed. Now the problem with British warm coats is they got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper sort of quality, and if you bought a modern one now, I mean, they're just awful. It's not a British warm. It's probably not made from Crombie cloth, or not from original heavy Crombie cloth. So this one here, pretty classic. This one doesn't have epaulets, but very often they have epaulets. They're normally all double-breasted. And just here, you see there's moth damage where they're eating the fluffy bit off the surface. Now there is a remedy for this. If you're really careful, you can sort of rough up the cloth underneath and bring the pile up, and then use a razor to repair. It's not perfect, but it can hide a little bit of the damage. I've seen it done using a wire brush, but don't use a brass wire brush because that makes the thing go green. Right, that one is Austin Reed. Beautiful one here. It's a little bit big for me. This is made in a shorter style by one of the best tailors on Savile Row, one of my favourite tailors, Leslie Roberts. I mean, they were really clever. See, this is made for a tall chap. Again, this is the same material. This cloth came probably from the same factory at the same time. It's got these buttons may have been replaced. These buttons are not in tune chronologically with the book. Now, this coat has an alpaca lining. I was a very popular chap in Savile Row in the 1960s because I had a couple of rolls of alpaca lining, which I used to ration out to tailors. I might have mentioned that before. This is the magical stuff that nobody could get hold of after, I think, 1958, when all the alpacas died or went on strike or something. This is a really super one. Again, it's the style's been toned down a little bit, doesn't have the epaulets. It's a shorter version, may have actually been shortened. A lot of coats were shortened when, I think I mentioned this before, when the layout of cars got a little bit different and you were sort of lying down rather than sitting upright. So yeah, this one is Leslie Roberts with lovely alpaca lining, fabulous stuff, really great tailor. This one that I've got here, now I mentioned that Hawks & Co. of number 1 Savile Row made a really beautiful one, just as good as the one that was made by Moss Bros, who made a lot of stuff for Royal Air Force. Now this is made by Geeves and Hawks, obviously using the expertise of the Hawks people. Now this is a fairly long one. I've got one of these, I think, somewhere in my vast storeroom, made just by Hawks and Co. But this one's Geeves and Hawks, made for a pretty tall chap. Yeah. Now this has the Geeves and Hawks label. You see, Geeves were in Bond Street with a fantastic history of making stuff for sailors. They wanted to be in Savile Row, so they merged with Hawks and Co. I think early in the 70s and became Geeves and Hawks. And it counts now because we just know them as Geeves. Now, I think I have one coat which just has the name Geeves on it, which would have made in Bond Street. Crombie cloth, old, very heavy, beautiful Crombie cloth. I don't think you'd be able to buy this quality anymore. But regardless of who the tailor was, the cloth would come from the same place. Now let me show you a new one. Now I think this is absolutely dreadful. On its own it wouldn't be that dreadful, but when you look at the history of the cloth, you can see the cloth has got lighter and lighter. This is pretty flimsy stuff. They now fake up buttons. These are plastic buttons made to look like the original football buttons. It's just not really a British warm. It's just British warm style. Raincoats. I've got about 12 raincoats. I think I probably need 12 raincoats. I'm not going to be part of many of them. I might only wear one of them. I tend to slip on an old Burberry, funnily enough. A lot of people think Burberry invented the raincoat. They didn't. They invented gabardine, which all credit to them, but the first trench coat in this style was made for soldiers in the trenches, and it had lots of little military things going on. You see, the epaulets, you have your officers' pips on the epaulets here. Now on the belt, you get little D-rings, which they still put on these days. That was for your gun and anything else you might want to hang on there. So usually there'll be a panel here on trench coats, a little D-ring here that will be for the whistle when they're going over the top. Now this is a Grenfell raincoat. This is the holy grail of raincoats. This is the best raincoat in the world, and it's a trench coat, and it's got a Melton lining in it. This was the most expensive raincoat you could buy. I'll probably never wear this. I don't like the trench coats. Awfully, a bit too fussy for me, but they're popular. What I prefer, the one I sort of slip on if it actually is raining, and I've got it handy, just an old Burberry one, and I sort of favour this tonic green colour. I mean, this is just no nonsense, nothing, no unnecessary stuff, just something that keeps you dry. Some of my customers sometimes put their hands in their pocket and think there's a hole or something. No, that's any decent raincoat has this facility. You do it up and it's raining, and then you get to your car and you think, oh, where's my car keys? Well, they're in my trouser pocket. That's so that you can get your inside pockets without having to undo the raincoat. This is a nice old Burberry one, when Burberry still was the real company, spelt Burberry's with an S on the end. And when their main shop in London didn't say Burberry's, but Scotch House. If you see a Scotch House raincoat, that was the big Burberry shop. When they suddenly got successful in the fashion business, they changed the name to Burberry, which just sounds a bit more international and cool, and they changed the Scotch House shop into the Burberry flagship store. Lovely aqua scutum one here again, with a zip out lining. These are just fantastic. These are, again, nice and simple to wear. The zip out lining is just a nice thing to have in winter because it's as warm as an overcoat. Now, I think the film was the Ipcress file. There's a picture, I think, for the film poster with Michael Caine wearing a aqua scutum or a Burberry raincoat. But it just came about there. And they became really fashionable there. Everybody wanted them. Quite often people come into the shop and say, I've got those Michael Caine ones. They were fine until you found out when you actually went out in the rain, being a raincoat and waterproof, rain would run down the coat and absolutely soak your knees, and you'd get a big soaked patch on the trousers like that. So a raincoat has to be past your knees, really, if it's going to be any good at all. I love duffel coats. There's absolutely nothing as comfortable as a duffel coat. Surprising because they can be sort of open and yet they're still warm. The pockets are in exactly the right place to just stick your hands in them, especially when you've got phones and all that sort of stuff these days. It's such an incredibly well thought out, simple garment. Originally, I think the first we saw them was for the British Navy. You'll see sort of captains and admirals on battleships wearing them with a big polo neck white submariner's jersey. But there's different makers, and for me, the only maker, if I'm going to own a duffel coat myself, and I think I've got 3, this make, Gloverall, is just head and shoulders above all the others. Now suddenly duffel coats have become incredibly fashionable, and so people like Ralph Lauren and I think Yves Saint Laurent making duffel coats. Guarantee, if it's fashion people making them, they're going to be rubbish. They're not going to stand up. I mean, I've seen duffel coats from fashion companies like Laura Ashley and Monsoon people, and you just wouldn't wear them on a battleship. But these Gloverall coats are absolutely fabulous, as long as they continue to make them like this. Now, they've nicked a lot of things from different people. The fabric, I think, is the reason they're called duffel coats. There's a town in Belgium that used to make the fabric. It's called duffel. I think I'm right on that. These toggles, I think we nicked this from China. On Chinese garments, they had a sort of lozenge shape fastening that worked like this duffel coat. I don't know if it's come from anywhere else, but it's such a fantastic garment. There's a lot of adjustment in the hood. You can actually bring it down close to your scalp if you're really seriously cold. Never actually used that. See, it's got a piece of elastic in it as well. Now, there are duffel coats from other manufacturers, as I've said, and there's 2 or 3 manufacturers that claim to have made the original duffel coat and tend to be the governors, but I see an awful lot, and I've worn a lot of these. Only Gloverall ones. I think this company's, I mean, I might be wrong, it might be as big as Burberry soon, because they've started making a lot of other garments. They do a wax short duffel coat, right? And I recently had through my hands a duffel coat, but in white cotton canvas. So you've got a summer duffel coat, but it's quite chic and smart. So maybe I only hope that they don't go the same way as R.M. Williams and Bell Staff and these companies that once made super workwear and incredibly durable garments, and then as soon as they become a fashion company, the accountants come in and say, oh, we can make these cheaper, you know, we can use cheaper materials. I mean, Ralph Lauren, they must have a rule where they just won't spend more than about $20 on any material they buy, because it's very photogenic stuff. But you get a tweed suit from Ralph Lauren, it's not going to last very long. Gentlemen, I give you the car coat. Now these pretty much didn't exist until suddenly the position you sat down in your car stopped being like this and sort of started being more like this. And a long Chesterfield style overcoat would pull you down and tug you all over the place. So some bright spark came up with the car coat with a shorter back. Now they weren't exactly the most stylish thing. If you had a 2-seat sports car, like a Healy 3000, you would have a sheepskin, and they were pretty cool. But the car coat, the young tearaways wouldn't wear them, the teddy boys wouldn't wear them really. It was pretty much old man's kit, but they look pretty cool now. And this is just typical of your car coat. A lot were made by tailoring companies like Dunn to sell as a ready-to-wear thing. Yeah, this is made by Dunn. From that label, I'd say this one's probably late 50s, 1960s. I've had quite a few of these through my hands. It's a lovely thing. It's all natural materials. Now it looks quite stylish, but when the Beatles were happening, you didn't want to be walking around in a car coat. But, of course, a lot of people were stuck with their long overcoats that didn't really work in the MGA. So a lot of overcoats at that time were shortened. You can tell the ones that have been shortened because maybe in haste they just lopped the bottom off and then realised that maybe the bottom was quite close to the bottom, and you would leave the vent at the back very, very short indeed. I mean, there's little point in that 3-inch vent there. This would have been a good 6 inches longer, I'd say. There's another one here. These are lovely coats. They've been made by high street tailors and shortened for use in cars that you lie down in. This one's a lovely John Collier coat, and again it's been shortened. You've got a much shorter vent there. I think this would have been quite an elegant garment when it was its original length. Super material. Actually, it does look pretty good now, but this would have come down to my knees. This is a really nice coat as it is. This is by far my favourite overcoat. The raglan sleeve Harris tweed herringbone or barleycorn weave overcoat is such a classic item. Used to be able to find them quite easily in charity shops. They're not now, not for a long time. I've only managed to get one myself that's my size. This was a half lined one, so I lined it with some Tattersall material just to make it a little bit warmer, so it would actually keep me warm. This is absolutely super. But now and again, you get an overcoat that might not be your favourite overcoat, but you think, I've just got to keep this one. It's so bloody stylish. And yeah, here we go. And that is, of course, a Crombie. Now, just like when we talk about vacuum cleaner, we talk about a Hoover. This style of coat took its name from the cloth, Crombie. We say a Crombie, whether it's made out of Crombie cloth or not. This is actual Crombie cloth, and again this one is half lined, but I'm not going to put a Tattersall lining inside this one. This one just stays as it is. It's a really good city coat. Now if I was wearing a city suit, which I don't do very often, this would be my coat. It just feels really nice, and I'm not sure, the maker isn't anybody that's really well known, but the cloth is certainly well known. This is a really stylish coat, and the sleeve length's perfect for me, and I just like the fact that it's got a cuff, and also the pockets are lined. All quality overcoats pockets are lined with either velvet or moleskin, so when you put your hands in your pockets they're nice and warm. This is a really super coat. I don't think you can buy this kind of material anymore. If you bought an officer's great coat, the Royal Navy ones, they're made from a very heavy Crombie cloth, but you're just not going to get this kind of quality ever again. I love looking inside stuff. I might have talked about canvassing before. I love to just count the spaces between the stitches to see if they're straight and wonder who did it and wonder if they got away with it. But anyway, never to criticise anyone else's work, because this is probably better than I could do myself. So anyway, this is an old Huntsman coat, very much Peaky Blinders style, double-breasted, sometimes called Chesterfield. It's got a velvet collar, not an inset velvet collar, but nice velvet collar. It's a really, really beautiful coat, and sadly it's not my size, because I'd love that. It's really nice. It's a bit heavy, but they're not heavy when you get them on, a bit like the German leather coats. If you ask somebody to hold them, they say, oh wow, they're really heavy. When you put it on, it just feels normal. Anyway, someone or something has happened to this, and the lining, it came to me like this. The lining's gone. It's 1950s, I think, Huntsman. I'm going to put a lining back in it, and it's not difficult to do. I did a similar thing with I do like a bit of old Harris tweed, and this is a fabulous old, I think it's made by Horns or someone, forget who. Yeah. Yeah, no, Hope Brothers, right? Really nice old English brand, and the old 1940s Harris Tweed level. Now this was half lined, so a lot of stuff that gets made for the American market is sort of lighter weight. They like the Harris Tweed, but it's a little bit hot for them, so they don't line it fully. So I put this Tadassul lining in here and finished it sort of quite nicely, so it looks sort of quite original really. It's now a warm coat, and this is my my winter coat. And this raglan sleeve style of this coat, they are so nice. It's just like getting in a blanket or something. They're really comfortable. They're stylish. You can wear them a little bit oversized and they just look great. Unbelievably comfortable. This one has got the nice moleskin pockets, which a lot of old overcoats have velvet in the pockets, and it costs nothing extra to do it. I don't know why they don't now. Put your hands in and you think, oh wow, yeah, I want to keep my hands in these pockets. Yeah. But yeah, so this, I added the lining to make this a little bit warmer, and I'm going to do a similar thing with the Huntsman. Now, it's not a difficult job to reline an overcoat, especially if you got lucky like me. About 20 years ago, I bought a lot of these. They are, I think it might have been from some theatre company. These are suit bags and garment bags, but they've been made out of lining material and made a long time ago. So this is genuine 1950s lining material, 100% cotton. So it's perfect if you're going to reline a vintage piece like this. What I'll do with the Huntsman one is I line it to about here, which you need it to be a bit sort of slippy to slide on. You can't line the top and the sleeves with wool, it would be uncomfortable. And I'm going to line the lower bit with this. This is an old kilt. I might change my mind on the tartan. I've got quite a lot of these. You get yards and yards and yards of tartan with a kilt. And this is a large size man's kilt, 100% wool. It's got a few bits of sort of moth damage here and there, so I'm going to unpick it and get myself a very long length of this tartan. And so the bottom of this coat might be a different tartan to this, because this is maybe a little bit bright, makes a bit too much of a statement. So the top will be in this nice black sort of satin cotton, the shiny side of course. Yeah. So the top will be like that, and the bottom will be this lovely tartan. Now, it's not difficult to reline. You don't really have to have a lot of great skills to reline a jacket. Just take your cloth, and all you need to do, see, this already has one seam up that side, and could even reuse that seam. So you just make a start by pinning it into position and going along till it feels like going to stop, and you can very easily work out the pattern for a lining. This is going to be really great. I think by February I might have it finished. Sadly, it's not my size, it's about a size 42, but lovely bit of Huntsman kit. You'll never ever see this kind of cloth being made again. These buttons don't exist now, these lovely Savile buttons. Silk velvet on the collar. Really beautiful thing, cut by one of their legendary cutters at Huntsman. Absolutely super garment. So I'll be spending probably about a day on this to finish it, so I'll let you have a look later. I may have mentioned this before. It's a fabulous find. This is a Huntsman overcoat, which for some inexplicable reason somebody's taken the lining out of it and as a project, but they didn't get to finish it. I get to finish it sometime now. I was incredibly lucky. From a theatrical company that I used to supply, they had a lot of surplus suit covers. This is one of them. Just ordinary suit covers, which are like big pillowcases. So they just put over jackets and suits. But they've been made out of lining material. And they've been made a long time ago. So what we have here, I've got about 50 of these. I've got a fantastic source of vintage lining material, absolutely appropriate to lining the top of this overcoat. In fact, checking with a little bit of the original lining left here, you can see it's almost exactly the same thing. The important thing is it's 100% cotton, because I have a rule with linings about not using synthetics. Now, you don't have to be an expert tailor to reline something. There's a bit of give and take in lining. Now, it's quite simple to start. I'm going to do the top. Now, the top bit has to be sort of slippy and slidey so you can get it on comfortably. But the bottom, if you want to be a little bit warmer, you might use a Melton. And I'm going to use, for a bit of fun, some of this. I think this is King's Own Hounds or Gordon, I'm not sure. It's one of the Highland Regiment things. And I've got lots and lots of surplus. I used to make tartan trues out of this stuff, and now the Highland Regiments have been disbanded into just one Highland Regiment. There's a lot of this stuff floating around, and it's pretty cheap. Now, it's really quite simple. The lining's in 3 or 4 different parts, and you simply start. I'm going to start down at this corner here. First of all, you'll put a hem like that to start off with. So you're going to start like this, and you'll have a little half-inch hem on the other side. So you're going to press that so that it looks like that. Now, you could pin it into place. I always like to just tack it into place with some white cotton. So I'll do this really quickly here. I'm not going to cut this cloth until I've got this tacked up to the waist where it wants to be. Do this really quickly. Great big stridey, because when we stitch it on, it'll be in a black cotton, and this is just to hold it in place. And before you actually put any fine stitching in it, you just press it and sort of shrink it and make sure. So, see, now that's basically, oh, oops, missed. This is quite tough old fabric, it's probably made by Crombie. So, that's going to hold that in place. We'll press it before we actually stitch the thing in. Now, this is going up to about the waist here, and we put the bottom in first because the top bit is going to overlap when you put it on. So exactly the same thing with the top bit. So I will pretty much do all this side up to the shoulder and up to the sleeve, and do exactly the same thing with this. It's going to look pretty much like that. I love the fact that tartan's geometric, so you get your line straight very, very easily. So in the same way, this is just going to be tacked on like that, following the original line. So that's what it's going to look like when it's finished. It's going to be quite a nice overcoat, I think. Unfortunately, it's not my size. That size is big for me. Even though there is a tradition of wearing overcoats a little bit on the big side, this is going to go to somebody else.